um, open spaces, which is nice. Um, don't see a lot of people except those that live in our building, and you know, no, not much need to go anywhere, which is kind of nice.
Do you have the you have food delivered and
Yes, yes and no. I've been going to the store here and there, sort of as infrequently as possible. But also we have gotten some deliveries. It's challenging, um, certainly from the stores that are the most popular, you know,
right?
Whole Foods. I mean, it's like I feel like the times I've gotten delivery from Whole Foods have been just purely a stroke of luck. Like I requested it at the right moment in time, and I got super lucky. Lately I've not been so lucky, but it's fine. We have what we need. So
Good, good.
yeah. And how are you?
We're all, I think all together and uniquely our pandemic situations,
Sure.
all the same, and being, dealing with it. I'm so lucky. I get to see these folks almost every day. So
That's so great.
yeah, I'm wondering about your. Are you still teaching online? Are you? You're
Um, well, actually, at the moment, this year, I've had no private students other than my sort of private studio outside of school,
right.
and so it's both a blessing and kind of a
Yeah.
dearth of commitments. I have had a couple of brass quintets that I've kept seeing
Uh huh.
online, and of course the many sort of um, business and quasi sort of pseudo business related meetings, which we've all been
Right.
involved in, which is nice. It's like I've been able to connect with more people than ever, in these in these circles that are there always, but maybe which we're not in such close contact all the time.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so, so it's nice. There are always silver linings, and that's
Yep.
been that's been
Opportunities. For
yeah,
sure.
yeah, absolutely a focus of mine. Um,
So
so
yeah, and I had kind of mentioned to the students and that you'd been kind of working on this sort of like this productivity kind of
hmm,
thing. I would love to hear about that, and I would also love to kick it off if you could maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got where you are and what you're
yeah,
doing and
absolutely. Yeah, so I'm just getting up some notes here because I am kind of an incessant note taker. I've been sort of planning a little bit about where I might go
oh cool.
in this conversation, but yeah. So about me, I'm from Indiana originally, and I went to Rice University for undergrad, and um, then sort of bounced around for a few years here and there. I was in the New World Symphony for a few years. So if you're adding up, that's 7 years of super intense orchestral audition training from Bill, and then at New World, and then I played a year in the Oregon Symphony in Portland, Oregon, and then I moved to New York, and I've been here ever since. That was 2006 to get a master's at Juilliard with Julie Landsman, and then I did the Academy program. It was then called the Academy or Ensemble ACJW. Now it's called Ensemble Connect, and the alums of that program have formed another group called Decoda. So there are just so many names to remember with that program. Um, but I did that program for a couple of years, and then around 2010, I joined the Canadian Brass and played with them for a few years, 4 Christmases to be precise. That's sort of how Canadian Brass counts the years. How many Christmases did you do? um, Sort of their specialty, and yeah, it was what a treat, what an amazing experience that was. And then in 2014, I moved back home, so to speak, and joined the American Brass Quintet, and I've been doing that ever since, along with a whole host of other things here in New York, which is tremendously rewarding and full of lots of variety and excitement, and then of course lots of uncertainty, especially now, because the connections I'm making online as a teacher are that's the work I'm doing, which is really gratifying too. But freelancing certainly has its challenges and rewards. But so yeah, that's sort of professionally, horn playing wise, sort of where I am and how I got here. I I also have been on sort of a somewhat of a deep dive into meditation and mindfulness, and that actually, I mean, it started kind of a long time ago. I was just recently writing something about it, sort of like a chronicle of sort of what my experience with meditation has been. And I won't bore you with the whole story, but I really got into it when I was in Canadian Brass. One of the original members of Canadian Brass, Gene Watts, is uh, a, basically a lifelong meditator and also a teacher, a certified teacher in transcendental meditation. And he trained all of the members, well, all of the ones that were interested, that have come through Canadian Brass over the years, which is a kind of cool thing that kind of bonds us in a way. And so I was practicing TM, transcendental meditation, for I would say since about 2011 or 12-ish. And then a few years ago, I sort of switched over, and I got into more kind of strict mindfulness, which is a not so subtle difference, but certainly within the same realm of practice. And I can talk about that if that's of interest. But it was really around that time. I just want to say, like, maybe 2016, 17-ish, around there, that I sort of jumped into the deep end of the pool of meditation. And since then I've been really studying a lot and writing, and I've gone on some retreats, and have really sort of made that a huge part of my life. So I mentioned that in addition to the horn stuff, just because it is such a huge part of my life and of my teaching, and I think a super important thing for everyone trying to improve themselves. So please, Anne,
Um,
yeah. Sorry.
and as I'm just curious, like as a player, like how
Mm.
that is that into, I mean, it seems like that sort of integrated into your playing and performing and that sort of thing. There,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of interesting though, because I found that my meditation, my mindfulness practice affected my horn playing sort of like not immediately, like, and I won't say last, but like certainly long after it had affected my ability to, like, have a conversation with a patron after a concert that I didn't know, or maybe that I didn't want to be talking to, that sort of thing. Yeah, or like it affected my relationships at home, and with my family, and things like that. Maybe the periphery of life, or at least of my career. Like it affected those things more immediately. I sort of chalk it up to the fact that I've been playing horn maybe uh, in a more serious, like focused way longer than I've been doing most things. And so maybe I had become somewhat entrenched, as we all have become probably, in certain habits and certain ways of doing things. And so yeah, I found that it definitely affected my playing, and it has affected my ability to stay present during a concert, my ability to get prepared mentally before a concert. All of these things, it has affected them profoundly, but not immediately. It was sort of like, uh, you know, past a certain point of practice that I really started to see that in my playing, but certainly in teaching, and my ability to sort of be okay with myself speaking. So I'm even relying on it now, you know, because uh, as we speak, there's a lot of time filler, right? We say and whatever, and you know, like all this stuff, but just sort of even just being okay with those silences in the moment and just resting back and to whatever's happening. The sort of inclination to say to myself, oh, well, this doesn't make any sense. And, man, they're not even listening or whatever, you know, like that sort of, those sorts of distractions. I found it's easier for me to kind of get past that stuff thanks to mindfulness. But you know, this isn't, I wasn't thinking of this as necessarily being a mindfulness chat, but you know, I'm happy to talk about that because that's a huge part of my life and my routines. But yeah, the productivity class that I've been sort of developing has come out of this practice of mindfulness and self-improvement and self-awareness, and specifically it's come from a couple of like podcasts and apps that I've gotten really into using, and I'll just mention those because so much of what has come from this practice of productivity and self-improvement has come from them. So one of them is the app 10% Happier, which maybe some of you know about. This is, so there was the book a couple of years ago, Dan Harris. He's a pretty well-known newsman. He was on ABC, I forget the name of the show, but Nightline maybe. And it's a fascinating story about how he got into mindfulness from a place of total ignorance and skepticism. Is that the word? So that's a fantastic book, and he's since developed this app called 10% Happier, where he invites a lot of really, really famous top meditation teachers, and they're doing a 3 p.m. 10% live, 10% Happier live on YouTube every weekday. And that's been a huge sort of redirect for me. It comes at kind of the perfect time of day, you know, especially in this situation where, you know, every day is sort of similar, but then it, you know, during the morning, especially with kids, things can sort of get off the rails a bit, and bringing them back at 3 o'clock with that has been pretty cool. Another, I think there's a podcast too associated with that.
Can I just ask? So
Yes,
that's
please.
we would look up 10% Happier on YouTube, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
That's right.
Every weekday.
Yep.
And Dan Harris, we put that in.
Yeah, you could do that. 10% Happier live will take you there.
Okay. Cool.
For
thanks.
sure. Yeah, I keep forgetting about the time zone thing. It's like now we have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because like, we're all connected sort of somewhat immediately on the internet. But yeah, another new factor of our new life here. So so that's been one really inspiring resource. Another one is another Harris, Sam Harris, who wrote a book, Waking Up. And then he has a podcast now it's called Making Sense. It used to be called the Waking Up Podcast. He since created another app called the Waking Up app, which is more geared toward meditation and sort of self-improvement, that sort of thing. So Waking Up app by Sam Harris, and then finally the big one, and all these last names either are the same or they rhyme, but Tim Ferriss, who is really become one of the sort of gurus in terms of self-improvement and you know, creativity and routines and, you know, that sort of stuff. He definitely goes off into lots of different areas, you know, like fitness and like entrepreneurship, starting new businesses, things like that, some of which I'm less interested in. But as with any sort of resource, I sort of tend to pick and choose based on my interests. But Tim Ferriss, amazing podcaster and author. Yes, Anne, sorry.
Um, while I have my list going, writing down what you're saying, can you tell us where to find your writing and whatever else you're doing? You said you've been writing some stuff, and
Yeah, well, one of the things, the short answer is that it's not out there.
okay,
Yeah,
that's cool.
one thing that I want it to be, and I'm planning on getting it out there. Um, and I've been practicing writing as sort of a part of my routine, and to kind of get prepared for a situation where I am putting it out there more.
Nice.
Because I don't know, maybe I'm overly cautious about what I put out there, but I want to be ready. I don't have a website; it's in progress, but I want it to be somewhat like established, like ready when I
Yeah.
press go. That's just
What
me.
you want it to be, what you want it to be.
Yep. Yeah. I want it to be a platform, and not be sort of just like a seed,
Hmm.
which is cool. I mean, a lot of people are putting out amazing stuff, yourself included. And it's amazing to see the creativity and sort of freedom, that people are showing during this time. Maybe, I think one thing I've learned about myself is that I want to, I'm a little more cautious when it comes to getting things started, especially this project, because I have so many interests, and I want to make sure that that I represent what is really important to me, and what I value in the most concise and beneficial way. So that's hard for me to kind of hone it down. And
Yeah.
that's what I've sort of been working on, is how to write, and to do so in a really clear and concise way, that gets the point across, that's in a useful way for anyone reading. So I've been practicing, and so it'll be out there eventually.
And can I just say, I'm plugging my horn studio here.
Yeah.
All of these people are like great thinking musicians. So if you ever need like a test run or you want feedback where it goes no further, they also have a very strict honor code. Like here at Lawrence, like
Mm-hmm.
if in any sort of digital thing, you don't want to send it anywhere, but or just between the two of us, if you wanted to, I would love to read any draft or anything.
Oh, that's so nice.
And I totally feel you about like not wanting to put it out there till it's ready. But
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, if you wanted to do like a run through of something or
I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I would say that I am probably on the more cautious side, and I have people in my life that encourage me to not be so cautious. So, but anyway, I'm finding my way, and like so many people during this very strange time, I'm struggling a little bit with this desire to be productive. Um, like, man, I've got all this time, I don't have to go anywhere and all this stuff. And it's really hard for me. Uh, Again, I mentioned that I have kids. I have two little kids. One is 1 and one is 3, almost 4. And having them at home all day has been a tremendous challenge. Also a tremendous opportunity. I mean, we're spending so much time together, which is awesome. And the time that I have, or that it is easy for me to make for creativity, is not what I thought it would be. So, but so one of the practices that I've really very seriously been undertaking is sort of like a self forgiveness, or like a sort of a self nurturing practice. And I think that's so important right now. It's a bizarre time, full of challenges, but also full of silver linings. And you know, really just making sure that we take the time to take care of ourselves, I think, is probably the most important thing. So I've been combating my feelings of, oh, I need to I need to do this, and I have this crazy long to-do list, and I got to get my website out, and all this stuff. So with just a resting back and what do I need in this moment? What do I need right now? And sometimes it's like a bag of chips and like some time on the couch, that sort of thing. So anyway, that I think is maybe the first and most important practice that I would urge, and that's sort of like a self-compassion sort of thing. And I sort of thought that this time, and please, of course, feel free to like interject and ask questions about anything that I'm saying, or direct this in any way that is going to be useful for you. But one, I think the thing that is going to be the most useful, perhaps, or that has been for me, is looking at this time as perhaps a good time to experiment with routines, and this, of course, this could apply to like horn practice and like technical routines for playing. And I know you guys you probably have a lot of playing projects that you're doing. I, for one, have strangely felt almost no inspiration to play, which has been like really weird. Also, I've been practicing piano a lot, which is also strange, but I've been enjoying that a lot. So, but as far as personal,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Did you have a question, Alexandra? You got to unmute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
I
I was just going to ask you, I've been like struggling with like the, motivation and like thinking about like self-forgiveness and like self-nurturing. And when you don't feel like you want to play, because I've been feeling that a lot too, how do you approach that? Like, what do you do in times like that?
well, I personally, I when I don't want to play, that's sort of all the time. So I don't feel any pressure to play, um, mainly because as as a freelancer, I have thought about this a lot. Like, what is going on with my horn playing at the moment? I have gotten sort of used to running around town from this to that, and again, with the challenges at home with the kids, it's been hard to find time to practice, to make time to practice just in general in life. So I guess I've sort of found a way to make it work when I show up to work, uh, you know, to be really efficient with my practice time and to be able to just kind of show up and play, which I'm not getting a lot better at the French horn from doing that, but that's been my reality the last little while. So I think now that I don't have somewhere to show up to, and I don't need to, cram practice maybe the way that I am used to doing, I don't know what to play. So I haven't really felt, I haven't felt inspired. So again, what I have done is I have played the piano, played a different instrument, which has been really, really nice for me. I used to love playing piano when I was younger, and then it became all about the horn. So going back to that has been kind of touching for me and kind of a return to a childhood sort of experience. And but also like listening to a lot of music has been really inspiring to me, and to do that with at home with my family, to have sort of impromptu dance parties and like that sort of tapping into kind of a deep-seated humanistic kind of reaction to music, like even just practicing my dancing or practicing my rhythm along with some super like muscular rhythmic music, that sort of thing, teaching my kids about rhythm and stuff like that. That has sort of kept me feeling um, like a musician in a way, without my horn in my hand, because it does again, you guys are in a different situation. You have stuff you have to be practicing, and so, my advice would be to mix it up, do a lot of listening, a lot of mental practice, away from the instrument, that sort of thing. But in my position, being sort of detached from my instrument, it brings up a lot of questions of of existential, sort of, who am I without this horn in my hand? And so I guess I'm still sort of on that journey, sort of trying to figure that out. But I also do have a couple of projects coming up that I'm going to need to get back into shape for. So I'll let you know. I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thanks for asking. So as I was saying, this time, as kind of bizarre as it might seem, and free from routine in a way, I think is a really good time to experiment with different types of routines and practices. Primarily because actually you've removed certain elements of your day-to-day life. You might still have class, but you don't necessarily need to get super dolled up to go to that class, perhaps, and you don't need to, go outside and get in the car or get on the bus or whatever it is that you normally do to get to class. So you have a little bit of extra time, even though it might not feel that way. So the things that I am about to propose are things that really don't take a lot of time, but which can actually affect your day so profoundly. And if you sort of get into a rhythm with them, can change the trajectory of your mind and of your life. I've found in a really positive way. So one of them is, well, there's the obvious practice of meditation. Can I see a show of hands? Who's meditating? Anybody? Cool. Awesome. Nice. And that's something that I assume the people with hands up, or this kind of hand up, are finding somewhat useful and beneficial.
Did we lose you?
So I would just say that, sorry, did I miss
We
something?
just lost you that last little bit.
Oh, okay. Could be just a connection thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
everything cool?
This number of hands, or people whose hands are up, have been finding it beneficial. Then we
Okay, yeah. So I've found that even just a little tiny bit, starting with just a few minutes, even if you feel like it's not helping, especially if you feel like it's not helping, to continue with just a few minutes, it can really kind of get you into a rhythm. The way that I personally do it is and when I was starting out, so I would just get up a few minutes earlier, and it could be literally 5 minutes earlier. And then I would get up, have a drink of water, and then sit right back down where I had been laying. So for years and years and years, I meditated in my bed, right where I got up from. And I would sit right back down and start out paying attention to my breath and to my body, and feeling where I was in space. And if it helps to set an alarm, that's obviously a good idea. And there are so many apps, obviously, that can help you with that. And I think that doing it in the morning is nice because you kind of get it out of the way. If you wait until later, it's very, very easy to miss it. So again, just a few minutes can be super helpful. And if you miss a day, obviously not a big deal, but you have to sort of give yourself a shot at getting into a routine. So like saying that you're going to do it I'm going to do it today, and we'll see how it goes. And then maybe not tomorrow, or you know, you have to give yourself a bit of of a a time that you're going to try it for. So I would recommend saying that you're going to do 5 minutes for 10 days or for 2 weeks, as opposed to, okay, I'm going to start meditating today, and then I'm going to do it every day for who knows for how long, right? That we don't really respond well subconsciously to that sort of open-ended goal, right? So give yourself sort of a limit, 5 minutes for 10 days, and then I'm going to see what happens. And then you might establish that routine. So again, I'm going to move on from that, unless there are questions about specifically about a meditation practice. No? Okay. So then I have a couple of writing practices that I have found super helpful to me. And these come from a variety of sources, but I learned about them through the Tim Ferriss podcast. So it's sort of two-pronged, and at the moment I'm sort of just doing the morning version, but I've found that doing evening and morning has been super enlightening to me. So the idea here is that in the evening, before you go to bed, maybe not right before you go to bed, but maybe when the work day is done, whenever that is, before dinner or a couple hours before bed, to reflect a little bit on the day, to list a few things that happened that day that were awesome. Or it could be things that happened that day that were surprising or unusual. So just to start with that, 3 things that happened today. And it could be just totally ordinary, like the way that the sun shined in through the window at this particular moment. Or it could be the connection that you had with a dear loved one or something like that. Or it could be this great piece of music that you listen to, or whatever. It could be really literally anything. Now, there's another sort of another prong that I've experimented with doing and have sort of removed, but I see it as being somewhat useful potentially, and that is to write along with those things that were awesome, a couple of things maybe that didn't go the way you wanted them to, or that you could have done better at. I think it's a bit of a slippery slope, and maybe easier for us to think of things that didn't go the way that we wanted. So being sort of endlessly optimistic, I didn't enjoy that aspect of it as much, maybe because it was just so easy to think of crummy things. But yeah, so that's something that you could experiment with too, and see how that works for you. So that's the basic evening writing routine, but you can also, well, I guess I'll get back to the other part of the evening one. So then you put that down, you do whatever you're going to do at night, and then go to bed. And then when you get up, I have found that the morning one has been super positive. So what I do, I usually get up and I do a little meditating and then a little bit of yoga, maybe 10 minutes. And then I do this, basically it's a gratitude journaling. So I'll write at least 3 things that I'm grateful for. And again, that can be super basic, like I'm grateful for another day of life, or I'm grateful for my family at this time, or for this pen because it really feels good and it writes really nicely, or really it could be anything. The point here is that you're feeling some degree of appreciation for basically anything. Because it's been shown actually that you can't feel gratitude at the same time as anger or hatred, they're just not, they're not compatible. You could ask whether you could feel two things at once of any kind, but gratitude seems to slide right into whatever you might have or otherwise been feeling and sort of dispel it, at least for a moment. So that's sort of the first thing I do. And then following that, I write my intentions for the day. And this is another simple, brief, maybe 3 things. Sometimes it gets pretty long for me, 5, 8, 10 things. Again, it can vary in how specific it is. So my intention today is to put parenting first. Like, that's my first job, not getting my website done or writing a blog post for a blog that I don't have, or whatever, like all sorts of other things that you might want to do. This today, parenting first, or today I want to be patient, just patience. Or one that I've come to really like is to lead with love, to be just loving first, or kindness for everyone. That sort of, it could be super general like that, or if you know that you're going to be doing something maybe that you don't want to do, or if you're going to be encountering a person that maybe gives you trouble, your intention could be to be super tolerant of that person. Or I'm going to, maybe I'll talk less, or like whatever. So that your intentions for the day can go there. Now I'll go back to the evening one, because I think actually something that's super useful that you can add to the evening, if you want to be really disciplined about what you do first thing in the morning, is to write sort of like a bit of like an intention journal, but more of like a scheduling, like a discipline journal for the next morning. Like, this is what the plan is when I get up. So 6 o'clock up, 6:15 bench press, or whatever it is, 6:30 breakfast. And it does again, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be 9 o'clock get up, 10 o'clock laundry, or whatever. As long as it's something, there's something that happens when you have a plan, even if it's a very simple one. And when you do it before you go to sleep and you have it set, then I think you sleep better. You just know that you like are taken care of. There's something there. You are there to hold your own hand through the morning time. So there's some degree of rest, but it's also connected with discipline, because it's so easy, especially now, to just get up and sort of see where the morning goes. And there's a lot of kind of romantic idealism that comes in when you have this kind of free time. Again, maybe you guys don't have that free time, but I think it is helpful to create that sort of regimented schedule, like a framework. I should give a little credit here to the guest on Tim Ferriss that sort of brought this idea of discipline, and that's this really funny guy, super intense guy, Jocko Willink, JOCKOWILLINK, I think. I might have misspelled his last name, but he has a podcast too. He's a former Navy SEAL, jiu-jitsu instructor, super duper intense guy. And he wrote this amazing book. I'm blanking on the name, but it's about leadership and about discipline. And his famous quote is, discipline equals freedom. And the way that this kind of practice, where you sort of lie out your morning ritual ahead of time, it actually does show you that when everything is lined up and you're disciplined about doing it, that it takes a lot of the stress out of our life. It removes the sort of what ifs and like, gee, I hope I get tos. You know, you've accomplished something, you've done it, and now you have freedom to be not only available for other things, and for other people, but available in a more kind of present and relaxed way. So, so yeah, that's Jocko. Again, prepare for super intensity, Navy SEALs intensity. If you do check out that book and his podcast. So super fascinating stuff. So this journaling stuff has been super easy for me to incorporate into my routine. It's really, you can make it 5 minutes, especially if you don't do the evening one. You can do 3 things you're grateful for and 3 things that you intend to be or do. You can do that super quick, and get on with your life, and just kind of see how it changes. So yeah. Any questions about the writing? Any questions about the journaling ideas? No. Okay. So
I have one.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
a practical thing. Do you have your favorite pen, and is it a specific notebook you go back to? Is that part of the meditation thing? Like your, I don't know how to say it. You know, like you were talking about getting in the car, or however did you get to work? These are all these like kind of like threshold moments where we go from one place to another. I'm just wondering if it's not like I'm just writing stuff down on my desk here, but is it a thoughtful book? You have it and you refer to it.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm super into paraphernalia when it comes to basically anything.
Just wondering. Sorry, okay.
Totally. It's totally a horn player thing. Yeah, but I have found a pen that I really enjoy, and I bought 3 of them on Amazon, and and I've gone through previous packages of 3. So I like that pen. I'm open to other pens. I've definitely experimented.
I don't know anyone else who's like that. I don't think my students have ever seen a teacher who's like obsessed about writing.
Yeah, I'm sure it's
awesome.
fairly
Can you tell us
uncommon.
what pen it is?
Yeah, sure. Actually, hang on.
That way we can like steal his.
It is I believe it's a Pilot. Yeah, Pilot Precise V5. This one. I really enjoy that right now. But again, you know, I've gone through lots of different sort of iterations about the pens, and it's not a big deal, but I do enjoy it. I try and pay attention to that process, the actual writing process, as well as what it is that I'm writing. So another way to kind of subtly be more mindful of what I'm doing. But the book is super important to me too. I do have the same book. I've gone through many books now at this point. And it's a pretty simple, just journal here. This is, it's not a Moleskine journal, although I've had many of those. This is Leuchtturm, LEU. It's a really good journal. 1917. Yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah, Leuchtturm, 1917. Very nice book. I really like that it has page numbers and a table of contents. So if I am writing something that I know I want to come back to, then I'll write in the front like what page number that occurs on. So like New Year's is a super important holiday to me. And this year especially I did a couple of different writing and planning experiments for New Year's, and it took up probably 8 pages of this book, and I made sure and put that into the table of contents because I knew that I wanted to come back to it. But yeah, that's maybe unsurprising that I'm super into the paraphernalia. So yeah, that's that's an easy one. Um, a couple of maybe slightly more challenging routines, practices that you can begin to incorporate are are associated with generosity, and so that's so important now. Um, it's important all the time, obviously, but nowadays, I think that especially with so much stress about um, what we may or may not have for ourselves, and what may or may not exist for us when we come out of our caves, you know, especially as music students, you know, not really knowing what's going to be available to us down the road, and there's a lot of stress about that. You know, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to me? Um, and you know, financially, like, who knows? Really, it's crazy. It's a crazy time. So we so very easily get into this mindset of, you know, it's an egocentric mindset, like what's going to happen to my stuff. And so to kind of counteract that, a practice of generosity of spirit is so important to kind of get us out of our me-centric sort of obsession. Um, and a couple of ways, there are a couple of pretty nice ways of practicing that. One is another meditation, and this one is often viewed a little bit like kind of touchy-feely, a little bit kind of maybe overly spiritual or something, but it's the practice of loving kindness, metta meditation, METTA. And who's familiar with metta? Okay, so metta is literally the practice of offering unconditional kindness and friendliness to not only yourself, perhaps importantly, very importantly yourself, but to eventually all living beings. And you sort of take a certain kind of collection of phrases, and you repeat them over and over, first to yourself, and then to there are different ways of doing it, but just to simplify it, to somebody close to you in your life, and then you repeat them again for someone slightly less close, like maybe in the periphery of your life, somebody that's not a close friend or an enemy, and then you extend those same phrases to someone that maybe you have some difficulty with, and then you extend them again to all living beings. You can make pit stops along the way. Lately, I've been repeating them, you know, to myself, and then to my immediate family, and then to my community, like to my my building, you know, the building that I live in, and then to like the city, and then eventually to everyone. So if you want, since there's not a lot of familiarity with this practice, we could do a short one if you want. Yeah. Would that be acceptable? Okay, cool. All right, so just for a few minutes, we'll just go through a really brief one. I will offer a disclaimer that I am not a meditation teacher. I'm a beneficiary of many great meditation teachers, and I'm a learner. So I'm very much on this process and on this road with all of you. So, but this one is a nice one, and it's really very, very easy to incorporate. So sit comfortably, find your spot, and then we will we'll just close our eyes naturally. And we're going to be repeating 4 phrases, maybe 5 phrases. And the phrases are, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. And may you live with ease. Although we are going to start with the pronoun I. So take a couple of good deep breaths again so we kind of relax into our space here. And we'll just start extending the loving kindness phrases to ourselves. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. You can repeat those again to yourself. You can say them out loud or you can say them internally, whatever you feel comfortable with. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. Now, traditionally, you think of somebody that's been really there for you in your life in this next moment. But it could be a friend or a colleague, somebody that's close to you, that it's fairly uncomplicated to think of. And you repeat the same phrases. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Since we're here together as a community, we'll do we next. May we be filled with love and kindness. This group of us here. May we be safe. May we be happy. May we be healthy. And may we live with ease. And finally, offering these phrases to all beings. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be healthy. And may all beings live with ease. And then as you're ready, just gently open your eyes and reconnect with your screen, with all of us. So just again, to kind of reiterate the the sort of goals of this practice, it's not really to make these things happen. There's nothing like sort of wishy about it, like, or there's nothing that's attached to the actual outcome of wishing these things. Do you understand what I mean? So like, you're not saying, I need to feel safe and healthy and happy, and there's a timeline and it needs to happen. And when will it happen? It's about, and there's no like reciprocation either. Like, may you be happy and nicer to me, and do it quick, and in exchange I'll take out the garbage or whatever. This is like pure and simple generosity. It's really a generosity practice, that you're offering these things, that it's the practice of offering them. And it also is, in a way, in a very good way, I think, a centering practice, because you are repeating phrases, and there's a part of your mind that needs to sort of come back to that phrase, to those phrases, and remember that you're doing the practice. So that in itself is a sort of mindfulness practice, that you will undoubtedly lose your train of thought and kind of go off into some other sort of story that you're telling yourself. But the practice, the act of kind of coming back to the phrases again in a non-judgmental, kind of supportive way, that is in itself a form of mindfulness practice, in addition to being a practice of generosity. But I'm actually really curious. Oh, I see. Anne has her hand up. I'm curious what that was like. I'm not hearing you, Anne.
Sorry.
It's all good.
Mute myself. That was super great, and I thank you so much.
Sure.
And my thought, just as you were speaking afterwards, I was just totally in it when we were doing it. But as you started to talk about, this is really like the outcome isn't the thing; it's the process. It's being in that moment and stuff. And if I can just like circle back around to like horn playing, that is for me when I play the best is when it is an act of generosity or gratefulness to be able to make that sound, to be fully aware of my breath, and
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just circling back around because that's my best playing is when I do that. Anyway, but I wanted to
absolutely
interrupt you.
No, thank you for bringing it back, because so much of this is directly connected to every aspect of our life, how we interact with people, but certainly to the things that we are most passionate about. And I assume that playing horn, performing, connecting with other people through our music is one of those things. And so yeah, the ability to be in a generous and offering your playing to the people listening, that it's such a beautiful way to perform. And again, maybe I didn't mention this before, but all of these skills, these are skills that are not you're not like kind of born with them or not, or I'm a generous person and you're not, like that sort of thing. These are skills that can be developed. This is a muscle that you can grow, and it might start as just a few minutes a day, but eventually it can become more of a trait, like more of a part of your personality, without you even really noticing it. The people around you will notice. But it's very easy to feel like, oh, I'm doing this and maybe it's working. I'm just not sure. But then you'll know when somebody close to you says, are you doing something different in your life? Are you, did you, did you get a haircut or no, no haircuts these days, but no, it is really, it's very subtle in that way, I found. But I know we have a time coming up, right? That this is ending. Is that right, Anne?
Yeah. We usually go to 12:20,
Okay.
but anyone can stay longer, or Eric, whenever
I'm free, but I'm just wondering if there are any questions about any of this or anything else before we do wrap it up.
anybody. We all. I had a question. Yeah. Go ahead, Alexandra.
Earlier, you said that there were challenges and rewards to freelancing, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the challenges, but also the rewards, because that's something that I'm interested in, and so I'm just curious what your take on that is.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Good question. Thank you. So the challenges. Well, I guess I'll start with the rewards. The rewards for me are largely connected to the variety, the not only of music, so it's challenging in that way also, but to be flexible and to be adept at all sorts of different styles and sizes of ensembles. I personally thrive on that sort of variety in my life. Some people want to go do the same thing every day and have some consistency in their life, and that's totally cool, totally understandable. You got that. But yeah, I love the variety. I love the variety of people, so in the different ensembles and different venues, all the different types of personalities that you come across. That's just fascinating to me. I love that. I like the puzzle because so much of it is like, where am I going today and how am I going to get there? It does, when I'm in the grind, it becomes sort of like when I wake up, I look at the calendar, I'm like, all right, so what's on? Like I sometimes I'm not tracking on it on a day-to-day basis. So I'll look and see, okay, oh yeah, so I have that commute to make, and then I got to get across town at that time and all that. I just love that. I love doing that here. And I'm sure Anne would either agree or disagree.
Yes, it was awesome. Tetris.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it does get you into trouble sometimes, and that's one of the challenges. Seeing like 5 things that line up on your calendar, and like, oh yeah, I do have enough time to get from there to there and hit that downbeat, and then you're in the middle of doing it, and you're like, why did I do this? Like, how did I get myself into this? This is not worth it. So that's a challenge, to know what to say yes to and what to say no to. Of course, starting out, I and most people are in a position where they want to do everything, and hopefully you get to a point where you can afford to say no to some stuff, and that's been a challenge for me. Another challenge, but yeah, not biting off too much, and definitely knowing yourself and your limitations is a challenge. But the main challenge of freelancing is not knowing, not knowing what the future will bring, especially as you own a property and maybe start a family, and you have bills and student loans and all these things. It can be very unnerving and kind of stressful to not know what is going to happen next month or even next week. But that is tied in with some of the reward too, because you see, I've been in this position many times where I have a lot of bills coming up, and I'm looking at the calendar and I'm looking at the date that all these bills are due and looking at the paydays for the shows or whatever that I've been playing. And then I'm like, wow, how am I gonna pay that bill? And then especially during that stretch of 2 weeks where I have nothing in the calendar, oh no, like that's where the anxiety comes in. And then somebody will call and ask you to do something, um, and then you'll get another opportunity and it'll fit with the other one. And that has been kind of an amazing part of freelancing. It doesn't happen that way all the time, obviously, but when it does happen that way, it's like wow, how is it that I'm able to do this, that this is a thing, that this is a way to make a living. It's just so thrilling in that way. I will say though that pretty much all freelancers have some sort of established thing, whether it's teaching at a school or teaching privately to students that aren't going to cancel their lesson every week, or they have some sort of job that's really flexible that will allow them to do work as it comes up. That's very, very common among my friends that are freelancers, even people that have been freelancing for years that are super busy playing. Sometimes they'll have a really flexible situation at a coffee shop that they love, or some other sort of thing, just to give yourself a bit of footing, not only for the practicalities of like paying bills, but for your anxiety. So you're not constantly waiting and hoping for gigs to come. So yeah, that's freelancing, ups and downs.
Can I interject something?
Mm-hmm.
And Eric, we had maybe a bit of similar path in going to. I played in Phoenix Symphony for a year.
Cool.
You played in Oregon, and these are kind of like your sort of like first job orchestras, full time, not enormously stable, not a huge endowment.
Right.
And I was there, and I realized like, okay, I also left, but those people have mortgage, and that's the only playing game in that town. I mean, there was like, actually, no, there was really nothing else you could do to make a living. And as that orchestra would go on strikes or the season would be cut shorter, I was thinking, I went from there to the instability of freelancing, but also realizing that when actually I think most freelancers have a couple stable things going, and when one of them drops out, I was always so grateful that I wasn't in Phoenix and going like,
right.
Do you want fries with that, or
Exactly.
It's fine. We do what we have to do, but I just thought I'd throw that in. That the concept of the orchestra job, and you get well, if I get into a top orchestra, great, that's awesome, and we often start in a B orchestra or one that's you can live off it. But now even our top orchestras are not playing at all.
Right.
At all. I'm just throwing it out there, like in terms of.
Oh, it's such a huge. Yeah. Well, it's about diversification, of your skills and of your sort of pots where you go for your honey, so to speak. Right. So it just makes much more sense on an economical level to sort of have many different things that are maybe fluid than have one thing that is your only thing, right? Because, as Anne said, orchestras, you just never know. I mean, top 5 orchestras have gone through major issues with financials and with endowments and with all that stuff, and having to cancel seasons, and it's especially now things are very, very unstable. So it's good to kind of have your fingers in lots of places. I'm mixing so many metaphors with that. Sorry, but yeah, it's super important thing to realize. Diversification of skill set, super valuable. Anything else? Well, one other thing that I was just going to add.
Oh, Carter's got a question for you.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Hi. This is a very basic question, but I'm still curious anyway. During your undergraduate, what was the most exciting or valuable class or ensemble that you were part of or took?
Oh, interesting. Let's see. Most exciting and most valuable. Those would be different things. So at Rice, the orchestra program is really tremendous. Larry Reckliff and the Rice Orchestra are fabulous, and he's a great teacher of orchestral repertoire and of course orchestral playing. And so I would say that was super exciting for me to be in such an excellent orchestra at that time, and I learned so much from that. It was really exciting to play that repertoire too with him. Yeah, so but I was a little bit sort of maybe not as serious as some of my colleagues or as experienced, and so I ended up not really getting to play a lot of big parts when I was in undergrad. So it was that my orchestra experience there was tempered by that. I will say though that the orchestra repertoire class that I took with Dave Kirk, who is a tuba player in Houston Symphony, teaches at Rice. His brass orchestra rep class was phenomenal, and I learned so much from that. So yeah, those were both very valuable in different ways. So, but yeah, thanks for asking.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, another question. Go ahead.
I was wondering if you have like a certain teaching philosophy or something that you like want your students to get out of lessons, like particularly.
Interesting. I do have, I've done some writing on my sort of general philosophy of teaching. Um, and again, I'm sort of still working on distilling that into something easily, something concise. But I think, we sort of just touched on it, the idea of being diverse and of being open to all sorts of different opportunities. Um, you know, my background, I mentioned it in my sort of self-introduction there about 7 years of super intense orchestra training, and then to be followed 3 years later by joining a brass quintet. And then 3 years after that, joining another brass quintet. And then now I'm playing in lots of different chamber ensembles and shows and things like that. Also some orchestras. So that training did help me a lot, and I won a few auditions, and I love playing an orchestra. But I ended up doing what I'm doing not because I planned to, not because I necessarily prepared for it. Funny story, actually, when I came to Juilliard, Brandon Reidenauer, who was then in the Canadian Brass and is now back in the Canadian Brass, he asked me to be in a group, a brass quintet, that was applying for the Aspen Fellowship program. And he really wanted me to do it, but I told him, no, I'm not really a quintet guy, is what I told him. And but then, he came back again like 6 months or a year later. No, I guess it would have been a couple years, 2 or 3 years later, and asked me to join the Canadian Brass. He personally asked me. So at that time I was more, I guess, of a quintet guy. But it's just, I guess, to answer your question, my philosophy is about being ready for anything, for preparing, for improving yourself in every way that you can, in any way that you can reasonably, being open to opportunities that you might not think that are super valuable to you, because you just never really know. You have to be nimble, and you have to be flexible in this economy and in this job market. I think it's so common that you see people like, I'm going to do this, and they put so much into it, and maybe they do get that, but then are they happy doing it? That's a big question. Do you, whatever you think is your dream right now, like imagine yourself doing that for 20 years with the same people all the time. Um, Even if it, I mean, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be an orchestra job, but certainly that's where a lot of people in your sort of age bracket are. That's what they're dreaming of. And having had that orchestra job for a year, it just took 1 year for me to realize, like, I'm not sure about this. For the rest of my career, I really don't know. So I think just being flexible, being adept at as many different things as you can, and then sort of letting it all kind of come to you, as opposed to like trying to make it fit. That would be my philosophy overall. But you're welcome. Okay. Anything else? I was going to say just one other thing about generosity. And this is another practice that is not actually something you sit down and do, but it's something that I've heard from many different meditation teachers. It's something that you can just start doing in your life. It's pretty simple, and you might just consider what it would be like. But I think the first time I heard about it was from Jack Kornfield, another fabulous meditation teacher who wrote a lot of great books. You might check him out. Cornfield with a K. And that is that if it ever occurs to you in your mind to be generous in a moment, like by giving someone something or sharing something you have, or being there for someone that might need you, these kinds of things occur to us, right? In passing, and then you think, oh well, I'm in a hurry, I can't do that, or that would be too much work, or oh maybe that would offend them, or there are a lot of reasons that we don't do these things, and some of them are good reasons not to do them. But this practice is simply, if it occurs to you, to just do it. So like if somebody, it's harder now because we're not like interacting so much with people in person. So like people on the subway that asking for money, and it occurs to you that, oh, I do have some coins in my pocket, and then you say, oh well, but I don't know if I want to do that. But so just erasing that, I don't know if I want to do that, and just doing it. So I know we have fewer opportunities for that, but you might just start to think that way. Notice your innate kind of natural generous goodness, and then notice your reaction to that immediately, like, oh well, I can't do that. Maybe just go ahead and do it if it's possible to do it within reason. It's like, oh man, I wish my friend could get here quickly from the West Coast. Maybe I should buy them a helicopter. Obviously, you're not gonna do everything, but just see if there are little ways in which you could actually follow your innate generosity, because it's there. We think about it all the time, but then we don't do it for a lot of reasons.
The generous impulse.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give Alan and Cole and Jonah a shot at a question before you go. Do you all have any questions?
Mine was very similar to Alexandra's, so I think you pretty much covered that.
Mine were mostly about the mental process of, playing the horn, and the mindset, which were, basically a lot of this. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, mine have pretty much been answered too.
Wow. Yes. I did it.
And can I just want to thank you so much for spending this time with us and just being so present as much as we can be across thousands of miles, and being like just super real with your own challenges, and that's super helpful to me. And I have like a totally weird favor to ask.
Okay.
And if it's sacrilegious, say no. But in parting, as we're all horn players, do you think we could do the meta thing or the five thing with our horn playing? Like, can we play with healthy? Can we play with ease? Is that too weird?
No, I don't think so.
Because you're talking about like you're teaching philosophy, and I'm listening to those things, and I'm very interested in the intersection of our playing lives with our daily life. I mean, because it was different in conservatory. You said you had 7 years, like horn, but you get out of that and you realize like, oh, okay. So sometimes I feel like the horn is helping my life, and sometimes I feel like by trying to play in a present and aware way, I'm helping my life again by giving to this instrument or to produce the sound and that intersection, you know. So
yeah. Well, I think I did mean to say this, so thank you for asking, but you can change those phrases to be really anything that you want them to be. You know, please,
you know what?
you know,
I mean,
adapt
if you
them.
look at it, like this is like a great list for a horn player. Like, be safe. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
play healthy. Don't get, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With ease.
Yeah,
And with
ease.
love and kindness. I mean, I can't think of a better mindset, you know, to come at the instrument with, and to not be thinking like, and if I do all these things, I'm gonna nail it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like, it's not like gotta have it, but to stay in this process and not have it be necessarily goal oriented, but to be the goal being to be in the process, and then let it go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The goal is the path.
the goal is the path, right?
The path is the goal.
Is the goal, right?
Yes. So let's do it.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm closing my eyes.
Okay. So find that space again.
I'm muting myself here.
Okay. Take a nice deep horn playing breath. And we'll begin repeating the phrases for our horn playing. May our horn playing be filled with loving kindness. And may our playing be safe. And may our playing be happy. May our horn playing be healthy. And may our horn playing be filled with ease.
Oh,
Yay!
thank you so much.
Thank
I'm
you,
totally
guys.
doing that before we're practicing. I feel like super jacked up now in that good centered way. Like,
Yeah. Well, I feel the same way. So thank you for bringing that into that practice. And, you know, maybe today is the day that I play my horn again.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you all. And, you know, congratulations on building this beautiful community of like-minded students. I really get the vibe. I love you guys. It's awesome.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks
so
for the
much.
opportunity.
All right.
Take care, and please be in touch if there's anything I can clarify or expand on.
Great. And
Cool.
I'll just ask you while you're here, would it be okay to give your contact information to the students if they
Yes.
have any questions? Okay.
Yes, please. Yeah.
All right. More soon.
All right. Take care. Be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'll say bye to everyone.